Falcon's Rest is a bar and grill on Old Route 7. It is located where three counties intersect and is slightly outside the city limits. Rest, as it is known, is sometimes called a bar for cops because a significant number of customers are representatives of law enforcement agencies. As a place for a secret meeting, it would be last on most people's list, which puts it at the top of my list. I parked in the well-filled lot and headed towards the main entrance. As befits a cop bar, Rest is better equipped than most, with a large open bar area lined with tables for seating. On the last Friday of the month, there were a lot of visitors here, but there was no big crowd. The situation was ideal for my meeting with Sergeant Devin Cross. There were enough witnesses here that the meeting did not seem secret. Upon entering, I was met with hostile looks from most of the visitors. I expected nothing less because the lawyer was suspected of murdering his unfaithful wife and her lover, a police detective. Of course, there was no verdict or indictment. It is difficult to do anything without evidence. The bodies were not found, and the lover's car disappeared along with the lovebirds. Nevertheless, I was considered guilty. The couple disappeared without a trace. I had a motive, and I was a seedy lawyer. Who needs evidence outside the courtroom? Devin arrived and didn't look too pleased with my choice of meeting place. He was a tall, well-built black man. He could be called a man of honor. He is here to repay a debt and thereby cleanse his soul of the guilt he bore for being indebted to a man of my reputation. I will be frank and say that I am what is called a dishonest or hardened lawyer who does not pretend to have the slightest moral character. I'm an unwitting accomplice in half a dozen organized crime cases. The day he walked into my office with a thick stack of foreclosure papers, poor Devin was going through a truly difficult time. Then Metropolitan Police Officer Devin Cross was the victim of predatory mortgage scam lenders, and in those early days of 2008, he and his wife and 4 children were to become just another sad, homeless man. He went through all the honest and quasi-honest lawyers without receiving any significant help. He turned to me out of pure desperation. To tell the truth, I don't know why I helped him. There was nothing special about it for me. He was an honest cop and a good man, loyal to his friends, but not someone I could take advantage of. He couldn't pay. Being honest, he told me about it right away. Internet scammers took his last dollars. The foreclosure was issued the next day. He just sat in my office, a big, physically strong man, with tears in his eyes, and talked about his daughter, his little princess. She had cancer, and he didn't know how to tell her and her brothers that they were about to lose their home. To stop the sale, I filed for bankruptcy, then asked some of my less scrupulous clients to visit a mortgage broker and get an admission that the documents used in the foreclosure were fraudulent. In other words, a mortgage fraudster, faced with 2 even more brutal criminals, was telling the truth for once. Then all it took was a bribe to the court, more than Deutsche Bank was willing to pay, to at least once achieve real justice. Why did I do all this? I still don't get it, but Devin Cross had a hard time living with the knowledge that his family's home had been saved by a scammer like me. "You chose a strange place for the meeting," he said. "Even a guy like me has a conscience. I couldn't let you get into trouble by helping me. And that's why you chose this place?" he asked as Lottie, the barmaid, approached. She was dressed as usual, in a tight top that did not cover her stomach, and trousers that looked like they were painted on. She was a very beautiful girl who was not afraid to show off her assets. "What can I offer you, Bruce?" she asked me. She and I had a long relationship consisting of harmless flattery and excessive advice on my part. She had a small son and no man at home, and she made the mistake of choosing sex appeal over reliability. I saw Lottie tense. Everyone said I was guilty. Accordingly, I must be guilty, and therefore anyone associated with me will suffer. However, I noticed that Lottie came to the table when she could have had someone else serve me. Lottie was a good friend. As it turned out, I had more people like her than I thought. I didn't want them to get hurt because of their loyalty. I needed to do something to get my life back and reassure people that they could relax around me. In turn, Devin Cross gave me a lifeline, but I needed more. "Bring us 2 Boston beers, Lottie," I said. "I must admit that you have courage, counselor. Go to a place where Paul Marino's friends and work buddies were gathered. Devin said. Paul Moreno is the same bastard who seduced my wife and got me into shit. On the night of March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, he, his Ford GT, and my wife disappeared, and the night before storms alternated, flooding 3 counties around Schoharie Creek. In any western state, this body of water would be called a river, but here it was mistakenly called a stream. This tempting name led to great suffering. People stubbornly continued to bridge and build around this treacherous but modestly named watercourse. Schoharie's misjudgment paid a heavy price in lives and property. By the beginning of March 18th, all emergency teams were busy rescuing people stranded by the flood. For several days, no one noticed that my wife and her asshole lover were missing. Then, of course, suspicion immediately fell on me. The city takes courage, as they say, I told Devin, and we chatted about nothing while he prepared for what he came for. I waited for 2 beers and then said, "Just say what you want, and I'll do the rest myself. Trust me, and no one will ever believe that the tip came from you." Then he leaned over and whispered, "There is a warrant, and on Sunday at 6 in the morning, they will raid your home and office." I pushed the chair and jumped up so that he fell, and then shouted, "Listen, when I need advice, I won't ask some pig from the subway about it, and she would be a better friend than you." I repeat for the last time, I don't know what happened to my wife. I ran out, leaving behind a rather confused Devin, but he was a smart guy and realized that everyone would believe the worst about him. He'll be seen as an ambitious cop looking to get ahead by exploiting our relationship. My confession would be a feather in any cop's cap. Trying to extract a confession from me would not have harmed him, but the fact that he was seen with me at a secret meeting would have ruined him. In this case, everything was so public that no one would believe that he warned me. As I walked out of Falcon Rest, I sighed. I alone am to blame for the fact that everything has reached such a deplorable state. I let my heart get the better of my head. Now I have to work my ass off to get out of the mess that we call justice in this country. Still, the words from my late wife's diary haunted me. They were a swarm of killer bees, stinging my heart until all the blood was drained. In the diary of Elena Gray, Mrs. Bruce Gray, the entry for the 1st of October read, "Today, I saw him again. He is very tall and handsome, with wavy black hair." Jenny says she knows him. In fact, she slept with him. He's a police officer, which means he's keeping an eye on me for something to do with Bruce. It's hard to believe that such an ordinary person as Bruce could arouse such suspicion in others, but I think it has to do with the fact that he is a lawyer for such high-profile criminals. After all, the people he deals with are much more interesting than poor Bruce. Don't get me wrong, I love him very much. He is a teddy bear, the kind of man you feel safe with, and why people think he's dangerous, I'll never know. Jenny says the cop watching me is very talented. His name is Paul Moreno. Jenny had been dating him for the past 6 months. Her husband Bob is a clone of my Bruce, except he has a boring real estate practice instead of some black hat criminal lawyer. You can't blame Jenny for giving in to the police officer's persuasion. After all, the temptation is so great. After 7 years of marriage and 2 children, she's looking for a little thrill, or so she says. After 15 years of marriage with a 14-year-old daughter, I'm ready for a rocking chair on the back porch. Women like me simply don't attract the attention of young guys. This makes me feel so old. October 15th. Bruce is away again. I swear this man is moving out of town more and more often. If it had been anyone else, I would have suspected infidelity, but this man is as faithful as a spaniel, and almost as exciting. Today, I signed up for the gym. Jenny persuaded me. She's into fitness and needs a partner. I'm not in such bad shape, not like Bruce suffering from a midlife crisis, but Jenny needs a partner and I could use some physical tone. I increased my morning run from 1 to 2 miles, but I need to work on my stomach and butt. I feel empty nest anxiety. Maybe getting in shape will help. And why did I let my 14-year-old girl talk me into sending her to this boarding school? I swear, Rachel is just like my mother, all feminine ambitions, no concern for others. My mom still makes fun of my career choice, but I believe that helping others is the highest calling that anyone can aspire to. Being a social worker can often be frustrating, but on those rare days when you realize you have helped someone else change their life, there is no greater reward. On the other hand, Rachel may be trying to avoid the stigma of Bruce's profession. People say such cruel things. A teenage girl can be very sensitive. It might be better for everyone if Rachel leaves, but the mother can't help but miss her child. I saw him again today. God, how beautiful he is. He was at my gym. What a stud he is. He was wearing such a tight suit. You could see the sculpt of his abdominal muscles, but I tried not to look at the bulge in his shorts. It can't be all about her. Why he keeps following me, I will never know. But Paul Moreno is certainly easy on the eyes. 17th of October. Today I saw Paul Moreno at the gym again. He caught me looking at him, but all he did was hold eye contact until I was forced to look away. Jenny says he must be interested in me, but I can't figure out why unless it has something to do with Bruce. I took a glass of wine, then leaned my back against the head of the bed. I tried to give free rein to my imagination, but it kept coming back to Paul, his hard, muscular body and enormous dignity. I tried not to think about him. It seemed so disloyal to Bruce. But this is just a harmless fantasy. There's nothing wrong with fantasies, right? 2nd of November. Today I went to vote, but it doesn't matter. As I left the polling station, I saw Paul again. He didn't try to hide, hasn't followed me for a while, but has been back in the last few days. He even said hello to me. I stopped and spoke to him. "Are you back to spying on me again?" I asked. "Well, that's my job and my excuse." "An excuse? What would you say if I were just following you? Why do you need this? Have you looked in the mirror lately? Oh, wait, I am the mother of a teenager. That doesn't stop you from being a sexy mother who gets all the young guys." "Stop, I'm an old woman." "Yes, you, unfortunately, are a mother, but not old, just sexually mature." Then I saw an acquaintance and interrupted the conversation. I can't believe he's flirting with me like that. Of course, after visiting the gym, I lost 5 kilograms and tightened my butt. But still, such a young, hot guy was interested in me. It is certainly worth continuing in the hall. At first, I was intimidated by all these young girls with their strong bodies. But if I find a personal trainer and work out, it will pay off. Bruce noticed, of course. 24 roses just arrived. When I called and asked why, he simply said he wanted to send them to his beautiful wife. What can you say about such a man? I love him so much. I may be flirting with a handsome young man, but I will not betray my loving husband. "Jake," I said as soon as he picked up the phone. "God, do you know what time it is, counselor? I've been calling you since about 9. "I was at work," Jake Trumbull answered. "Well, I have a new job for you." "Can't she wait?" "No, the highest urgency." "So what?" "By sunrise on Sunday, I need a 100% black bedspread in my residence and office." "This Sunday?" "Yes, exactly this. It requires at least 72 hours. And you give me at best 24. "Sorry, I was just informed that I need it." "Well, it will cost you well." "How many?" 35, Jake said. "After all the business I gave you? This is a special price. For anyone else, it would be 50. Jake didn't say that it was unlikely that I would survive sending him any more business. Moreover, at the moment, whether he was a business partner or not, I was in no position to bargain. He could have given me any price, and I would have had to pay. "Okay, just do it," I said. 9th of November. I've seen Paul 3 times in the last week. Now he always smiles and waves at me. Jenny had a full-blown affair with this man. She says he is the best she's ever had in bed. He is 29, 8 years younger than me. I asked her if he was worth risking my marriage for, and she told me to ask the question again after I tried it. Last night I attacked Bruce when he came home. I think there are some benefits to our daughter being away from home. Bruce did great, but I'm ashamed to admit that all this time I was thinking about Paul. Am I so depraved that I need to think about another man while my husband is making beautiful love to me? Today, as I was sitting at Starbucks, sipping my mocha latte, Paul came and sat at my table. For a long time, he sat silently and looked at me, while I studiously ignored him. But finally, he broke the silence. "I was transferred to another position," he said. "What?" I'm not officially following you anymore. What does it mean? Well, among other things, this means that my superiors have decided that no matter what crimes your husband committed, you were not involved in anything illegal, he said. Then he reached across the table to cover mine with his and said, but it also means that now I can tell you how much I like you. I wish we could get to know each other better. You know I'm married, so what does it mean to get to know me better? He reached out his other hand and took mine between his. This means that you, a beautiful woman, are married to a man who is not able to satisfy you. You deserve to experience love the way it should be between a man and a woman. What about Jenny? I heard that everything is fine with you. What Jenny and I had was purely sexual. She is not satisfied sexually in her marriage, but I am looking for something more. Besides, you can't believe that any man would choose Jenny over you, he said with a smile. As I already said, I am married. I have never cheated on my husband. Can he say the same thing? You saw my husband. What do you think? I think we both know you deserve better. With that, I stood up, leaving most of my latte unfinished. I needed to get out of there. This man had such an influence on me that I felt uneasy. December 1st. I hadn't seen Paul since he ran into me in the cafe, and I began to fear, and at the same time take comfort in the fact that we might not see each other again. I regretted it. His attention was amazing to my ego, and I had to admit that I desired him on a purely physical level. Moreover, I have never been with any man other than my husband. I admit I was curious to know what another man would be like, especially one so gifted and such a skilled lover. After work, I walked to my car in the Department of Human Services parking lot. I was more than a little late, delayed by paperwork. The area was well lit, but empty. When I walked to the car, I had a clear feeling that someone was watching me. I leaned over to open the door, and suddenly he was next to me. I jumped back in fear. Paul, you almost scared me to death. Are you stalking me now? Sorry, he said, groping my waist under my open coat with his hand. I just had to see you. I am always thinking about you. I guess I should have been scared, but the thing is, he was on my mind almost constantly. I wanted to see him again. Please, I begged, leave me alone. I can't do this to my husband. In response, he just leaned over and kissed me. He was so big and tall, so courageous and strong. He overwhelmed my senses, and as in romantic cliches, I felt electricity in his kiss. Some kind of spark jumped between us. I need you, he said, more than all the women I have ever known. If it were just me, I would leave you alone, but I feel your body calling me. I couldn't help myself and kissed him back, but then I pushed him away, jumping into the car with the words, I can't, and I would like to, but I can't. They didn't bother to knock. At dawn on Sunday morning, 4 officers dressed as stormtroopers picked the door lock and forced their way into my house. I think they assumed they would find me asleep. I was up in the kitchen preparing what the travel brochures call a full English breakfast. Of course, I substituted smoked fish for the salmon, but I found a specialty store that sold kidney pie. I was just scrambling eggs in a large frying pan when the first stormtrooper burst into the kitchen. I hope you like scrambled eggs, I said, but he grabbed me and pushed me out of the house. I was kept in a police van while my house was torn apart. They did the obvious. They tore up the carpeting and dug up the flower beds. I was glad I chose mostly wood floors. They lifted a few boards, but left the upper floors mostly untouched. The basement was destroyed. What I didn't like the most was that they broke into the trunk of my car. It seemed like pure malice, as I had left the keys in the ignition, but destruction seemed to be the order of the day. For all that, they weren't that bad. After the destruction of my home stopped, several officers with whom I had become friendly over the years invited me to lunch at Denny's. Where are you taking the dead bodies, Bruce? They asked, as I ate what the menu called a big breakfast, which turned out to be a decided disappointment after the meal I had planned. As far as I can tell, there are no corpses. Come on, they disappeared in March. It's October now. Do you think it will rain today? It was very dry after those spring and summer storms. With my flower beds gone, I'll have to replant the bulbs if I want flowers this spring. But still, I'm better off than all those people around Schoharie Creek, I said, referring to the flood at the creek. My interlocutors at Denny's paid no attention to the flood victims or the flowers. They were only interested in one thing. They desperately wanted my confession because ultimately, they had virtually no evidence. The problem was that I knew that this condition could change as quickly as a flooded stream. If I were you, I wouldn't expect to see spring flowers, but it will be easier for you if you help us. We know you had a good reason for what you did. Maybe you've just lost your head. Stop being a lawyer for once and become a man. Take responsibility and we can help you. No, I don't think it will rain. It looks like there will be a drought after the rain. I'll stop by Lowe's for some light bulbs. Okay, have it your way, lawyer. But in this state, cop killers get fried. You should think about this carefully. 9th of December, I had a hell of a day. We got a call early. 5 children need protection. I don't usually work for Child Protective Services. However, we are currently in a busy season and time of year when we are short-staffed. With a bad flu season and people needing time off for the holidays, we had to be flexible. However, 5 children under the age of 7 needing emergency care is a bad day. All of them were injured. They had just seen their mother beaten almost to death by the man they called father. He was only a blood relative to 2, but still, he was the one they relied on for protection, and he betrayed them. I didn't want to separate them or put them in a county center for Christmas, but what could be done? Around noon, I found a couple in their 60s who had raised their own children and were still in excellent physical shape. Both were recent retirees suffering from a loss of purpose in their lives. The wife was a nurse and the husband was a traffic engineer. By 4 o'clock, we had temporarily placed the children and created a support system for the new foster parents. I was feeling pretty good when the state police called and said they were unhappy with the placement of the children. It was the same old nonsense you always get from the state. The welfare of children is not as important as whatever interpretation of the rules they decide to accept as truth. Can you believe they were concerned about paying for childcare to people in the state pension system? This can be considered double payment, said the woman from the staff. For an hour, we beat around the bush on this issue. The matter reached the head of the district administration and the state DSS commissioner. At that moment, when I already thought that the matter would not work out, I received a call from potential adoptive parents. When will the children arrive? The woman asked. We have everything ready. Both my daughters are here to help. Well, you see, the state is worried that payments for foster children will not be allowed because you receive a state pension, I said. What was said next was said in genuine anger. Well, tell that asshole governor to keep his lousy payments. Just send these kids to us. When the county executive heard this, she laughed and said, Okay, send the children. Then we can always sue the state for this money. It took me another 3 hours to get the children to their new foster home and get them settled there. When I was able to go home, it was already almost 8, and I arrived there around 9. The first thing I did was take a hot shower. I was wondering if I should call Bruce. Sometimes when I call him, we can talk for hours, but other times he is clearly pressed for time. I got the impression that his clients can be quite demanding. Usually I try to wait for his call, but today I just needed to tell someone about my day. I was wearing a terry robe and was just about to call Bruce when the doorbell rang. I pulled my robe tighter and headed towards the door. I opened it on a chain. Paul stood there looking so cute and a little guilty. Can I come in? He asked. I don't think that's a good idea, I replied. I know that your husband left the city again. You're all alone. All I ask is that you stop by and chat, maybe have a cup of coffee and talk. I can't, I said. You can trust me, he said. It's not you I don't trust. For yourself. Please give me a few minuties. I don't know why, but I let him in. She made us coffee and sat down with him on the opposite end of our large sofa from him. Sitting, I lowered the hem of my robe. It was a loose garment, but too short to be comfortable in such a situation. Relax, he said. I'm not here to take advantage of you. I'm here as a friend. I heard you had a hell of a day. Yes, I answered, and we continued to discuss my day, and this relaxed me. I told myself that there was nothing wrong with two acquaintances sitting and drinking. We actually switched from coffee to wine and had frozen pizza for dinner. It was probably already close to midnight when he said what he probably came for. Elaine, I will always be your friend, but you should know that I feel a passion for you that I can only call love. At these words, I shuddered nervously. Please, he said, let me finish. Now your husband is in New York, where he meets with representatives of organized crime and their personal anti-surveillance expert. They plan how to defeat the government's wiretapping program. These are evil people, and he helps them escape justice. Stop it. I won't listen to this. This is unfair. Bruce isn't here to defend himself. You are very faithful, but is it fair to you to be associated with such a person? By following and loving you, I have learned what a wonderful and caring woman you are. Your life is about helping others. You are a saint who married the devil, but I want you to know that I will always be there for you, no matter what. As the evening progressed, we moved closer and closer to each other on the couch as we talked. Before I knew it, his hand slid into my robe and we started kissing. I knew it was wrong. But as his hands caressed my naked flesh and his lips pressed against mine, I knew I couldn't hold back. We both knew where this was going, but it was like a freight train that didn't want to stop. I was helpless, and then I heard the phone ringing. He must have been calling for quite some time. Suddenly, this fact seemed to click, as did who was calling. Bruce, I said, breaking away from Paul's grip. Bruce was on the phone. Just checking, he said. Sorry, I probably woke you up. I lost track of time. I pulled myself together to answer and try to speak normally. Bruce was in a talkative mood and went on and on. As Bruce spoke, I saw Paul on the couch growing increasingly impatient. Finally, Paul smiled sadly at me and quietly left. Bruce's call saved me from irreparably damaging my marriage. But did I want to be saved? Paul's touch still burned me. He made me feel a passion that no man had ever aroused in me. The DA's conference room had a bleak, last-century look, as if it had not changed a bit in the last 20 years, which in all likelihood it had. Chloe Marshall was the daughter of a former state senator, a man who avoided prosecution and retired with enough power to get his daughter into the DA's office. From the DA's point of view, she was no better or worse than the rest of the miserable people, oppressed, poor, and defenseless, and complaining that the rich could hire lawyers. "Where is your gun, Mr. Gray?" she asked. "We didn't find him while searching your house." "Gun?" I asked. "Smith and Wesson. 44. Magnum registered to you." "Has he disappeared? You know that, yes." "Sorry, I'm hearing this for the first time. It was kept in the top drawer of my bedroom nightstand. Is he really missing?" "Everything will go easier if we are honest with each other," she said. "Okay, begin. What evidence did your officers allegedly recover from my house?"